Welcome back. All right, so today we're also going to discuss the Vancouver Canucks, as I've already discussed Toronto today. Vancouver, potentially a bounce-back season, potentially a season back in the playoffs. At the very least, that seems to be how management has approached this year. That this season is about getting back in the playoff hunt. I think part of it is making sure that Quinn Hughes believes in the direction the team's going. Word that, maybe Hughes had some say in the fact that Adam Foote's the new head coach with Tocchet leaving. But, and there's been talk of them actually having a practice rink this year. So hopefully that conversation, which I think gets overblown at times to be honest, but hopefully that conversation has gone by the wayside this year. So looking at their top six, and there's question marks right away. For me, there's question marks right away. So you've got DeBrusk, good goal scorer. Pettersson has to have a bounce back year. Besser, 25 goal season. They'd like him to get back above 30. So definitely a lot of ifs and maybes just on that first three. Then you got Höglander. They want a bounce back season from him. Hedl says he's healthy now. They want him to stay healthy. He has to be that second line center for this plan to work. That's why I have Hedl as the one to watch. If Hedl can stay healthy and get back to playing his game, he can be a very effective forward. But it's more ifs. Then you got Evander Kane. There's a big if there. How is Evander Kane going to fit in with the Canucks? Is he going to be a good goal scorer? Is he going to cut down on the penalties? Is he going to manage to stay drama-free this year in Vancouver? That would be great, right? But that's just the top six. Then we get into the bottom six. O'Connor looked good after the trade from Pittsburgh. Ratu. Is Ratu going to play a regular role with this team? I think he's earned it. He didn't get to play very much during the Calder Cup run of the Abbotsford Canucks because of, I believe, a broken ankle. But either way, Ratu is expected to be on this team to start the year, and he's going to get every opportunity, I would think, to be the third-line center, at least out of the gate, because with Suter gone, they don't really have that third-line center, right? The ideal would have been Pettersson, Hedl, and then Suter. Then you got Garland. Garland should be in the top six. I will agree with people on that, but he's not going to slot in ahead of Kane, so I'm not sure unless he ends up switching sides and, Höglander ends up being dropped out of that top six. Amon has been listed on the roster on Puckpedia, and I left him there, but I don't think he ends up being in that top 12. It's just a matter of who takes his spot, really. Then you got Bluger, you got Sherwood. Sherwood's a crowd favorite, throwing, 8,975 hits, I think, last season. It sure seemed like it. And still being an effective player. One thing that's important is, you can throw a bunch of hits, but if you throw them at the wrong time, if you end up out of place, so if you're out of position after throwing a big hit, and that is my maybe not number one, maybe like my number 7 pet peeve. So when a player throws a huge hit, the crowd jumps up and yay, and meanwhile, he's completely ended up out of position as a result of that hit. You cannot throw a hit if your team has the puck, so it's only a defensive play. Because if you throw a hit when your team has the puck, it's interference. So as a result, a player who's thrown as many hits as Sherwood, it's impressive that he doesn't end up completely out of position. Then you've got the others who could make it onto this team. Linus Karlsson has to be on this roster. I think Karlsson ends up in instead of Amon, but Karlsson's listed as a right winger, so right. Then you got Kravtsov. Well, they didn't bring Kravtsov back to send him to Abbotsford. At least I don't think so. Lekkerimäki. When does Lekkerimäki break into this roster and end up being a scorer? Considering Vancouver's goal issues at times over the last couple of years, getting Lekkerimäki and his shot into the lineup could be good. Sassen's paid his dues in Abbotsford. I think he should get a look as well. Baines has a lot of good upside there, so he's going to get into some games. Mueller had a very good rookie season with Abbotsford. Labate is back in the Canucks organization, which I think is great. McEachern has joined the organization as well. One thing that was kind of fun to see this summer is that Abbotsford, while they lost some players, they were able to rearm themselves pretty easily because players want to play in Abbotsford. It's weird. AHL players want to play in Abbotsford, and yet Vancouver is often listed as too dramatic and not enough success, and players don't necessarily want to go there. Then you got Klimovich. I'm starting to wonder if Klimovich is going to end up playing in the NHL, to be honest. Just feels like there's other guys ahead of him, so if he's going to end up making it into the NHL, it may not be with the Canucks. Stillman, Bloom, and Ulrichsen rounding out the depth. There's a lot of depth here, and I like their AHL team still. Abbotsford could be a power in the AHL even at this point because they've still got Manny Malhotra too as coach. But I don't know about this forward group in terms of their ability to compete in the West. That's where there's that difference with the Canucks. Then we get to the blue line. The blue line, I've seen a lot of hype that it's one of the best blue lines in the league. I don't know if I'd go that far. To be completely honest, I don't know if I'd go that far, but you've got Hughes and Hronik. We know what they can do, especially Quinn Hughes. And any defense with Quinn Hughes on it's going to be good. Marcus Pettersson, Tyler Myers, EP, or DPD, I should say, Elias Pettersson, and Forbert, rounding out the likely 1 through 6 on the blue line. Although they did pick up P.O. Joseph. Joseph could be a solid addition, at the very least a number 7 defenseman. Mancini wasn't picked up by the Rangers to play in Abbotsford. Mancini was picked up in that JT Miller trade with the idea that he'd be a Canucks defenseman in Vancouver. Brisebois is a good veteran defenseman for Abbotsford. Schultz, Kudravtsev had, I thought, a pretty good run in the playoffs for Abbotsford. Willander, of course, we know there's a lot of discussion about Willander's future with the Canucks organization and what role he's going to play now that he is signed. So that's good news. Crowd favorite in Abbotsford, Jet Wu, and Minio, rounding things out in terms of the depth on the blue line. It's the same as the forward group. I love the depth for Abbotsford. I'm not sure if the Canucks blue line necessarily gets them above that playoff line or not. I do like their defense core better in general than the forward group, especially if you're looking at center spot and wondering who that true number 1 center is. It has to be Pettersson. He has to have that bounce back year, doesn't he? It's not going to be Josh Levo. If anybody's wondering what number 17 this is, it's my Levo jersey. Thus the 50th and all that. So when we look at their goaltenders, and this is, I think, the strength of the team. Thatcher Demko says he's healthy. Thatcher Demko believes he's healthy. He's going to be fine this year. And that changes the game for the Canucks. When Demko's playing at his best, he's a top 5 goaltender in the league. Lankinen had a good year. I think if his starts are limited to about 30 to 35 this year, his numbers will get better. I thought they overplayed him at times this past season. And then for depth, they have Tolopilo, who came up towards the end of the year, and they have Patera. I know that it sucks that Shelovs is gone. However, Tolopilo seems to have some potential there as well. And I'm not as concerned as an Abbotsford fan about a drop-off in the goaltending necessarily. We'll see what this kid can do. So the MVP to me is clearly Quinn Hughes. When Quinn Hughes is on the ice, the Canucks are one team, and when he's off the ice, they are quite something else. And we'll see if that's still the case this year. If they're going to get back in the playoffs, they can't just rely on Quinn Hughes to give them their energy out there. Cap space, there is some cap space. $3,270,000. So the cap space is there for the Vancouver Canucks. The channel vote, not that optimistic, but not as pessimistic as I would have thought either. So 5% say first or second. I can't see that. I can't see that with that center spot. Like, for instance, Edmonton and Vegas are the first two that you'd think of. I don't see them being better than Edmonton or Vegas. Then you got the Kings. Are they better than the Kings? Probably not. So you're already down to fourth at that point. The argument can be made about whether or not they're better than the Ducks. So it gets tricky. But 36% of the votes say third or fourth. 48% of the votes say fifth or sixth. And then 10% say seventh or eighth. Totally understandable. People would be picking them in that bottom four rather than the top four. So the vote split is basically 58-41. Basically. But yeah, so we'll see. Now, the schedule is not their friend out of the gate. 7 out of 12 in October are away from home. 8 out of 14 in November are away from home. And then 7 out of 13 in December are away from home. So they'll have played 39 games by the end of December. So once we're getting into 2026. And of those 39 games, 22 of them will be on the road. So Vancouver's going to need to be good on the road to have a good record. The good news is that their schedule is a bit more home heavy after that. The bad news, though, is there's 16 games in January. So 16 games in January, but 10 of the 16 are at home. So if they can have a really good home record, which was not the case this past season, but if they can have a really good home record, January could be a good month for them. February, 3 out of 4 are away from home. March, that's the month where a lot of games are at home. They might be able to make hay and get closer to a playoff spot. 10 out of 14 are at home. And I'm already envisioning Patrick Allvin at the trade deadline saying, well, we felt like we have a lot of home games. We have a chance to get back into this. So even though we're 4 points out of a playoff spot at this stage, we didn't feel like we needed to do anything at the deadline. We believe in our team. So bookmark that if you want. April, 6 out of 9 games are away from home. So April is not as kind to them as March. But that's a lot of games after the 1st of January. And we'll see how they handle that. So Patrick Allvin's still the general manager. Jim Rutherford's name gets brought up a lot because I still feel like Rutherford has a lot of say. I don't think he vetoes trades that Allvin's trying to make or anything, but I do think he has a lot of say. I think there's a good relationship between the team president and the general manager there. I am looking forward to seeing how Adam Foote does behind the bench, his first chance to be a head coach in the NHL. We always talk about all the recycling that goes on. It is nice to see somebody get their first chance to become a head coach. Now, if we look back to 2021-2022, up until the 24-25 season that we just finished, the Canucks are 17th in the league in terms of the record over that time period. 166 wins, 120 regulation losses, and 42 losses in extra time. Their top 5 scorers over that time, JT Miller, their top scorer over that time period. Of course, he's off to the Rangers. 282 games, 110 goals, 209 assists for 319 points. Quinn Hughes, 304 games played, 48 goals, 264 assists for 312 points. Pettersson, that's EP40, of course, 306 games, 120 goals, 184 assists for 304 points. 304 points in 306 games is still all right. I understand everybody's going to complain about his contract, but he just needs to get back to at least point per game and start going from there. Brock Besser, 301 games, 106 goals, 118 assists for 224 points. Connor Garland, 321 games, 75 goals, 120 assists for 195 points. And there is no harder worker in the NHL than Connor Garland, in my opinion. Their top prospect, the one unsigned prospect that I felt like I should throw on the board here is this year's first-round pick, Braden Coots. And so we'll get an idea of what the picture is going to be going forward with him soon enough. But the Canucks are not a team that is awash with like your top-notch, top-level prospects, which is a complaint I've had over the years, that they don't seem to bottom out enough. They don't get the necessarily number one draft picks, although Hughes would have been number one if you do a redraft of his draft year. They could definitely use, I think they need another like really blue chip center. Maybe Coots ends up being that guy. We shall see. Their record this season, 38, 30, and 14. The 14's doing some heavy lifting on their points. They only won 38 games this past season. So I have gone from, I know years ago I talked about cautious optimism with the Canucks. At this point, I'm neither here nor there. I don't know. I don't know if this team can get over the hump this season. Now, their top scorers this past year, Quinn Hughes, 68 games, 16 goals, 60 assists for 76 points. Besser, 75 games, 25 goals, 25 assists for 50 points. Garland, 81 games, 19 goals, 31 assists for 50 points. DeBrusk, 82 games, 28 goals, 20 assists, 48 points. Very streaky Jake DeBrusk, but that's been his standard throughout his career. And then Pius Suter, who of course has gone to St. Louis. 81 games, 25 goals, 21 assists for 46 points. It'd be nice to Suter. He's a good player. But yeah, so it is going to be tough for the Canucks this year, I think, because they've lost Suter and they were not able to find that center that they were looking for. There is still time. There is still cap space. There is the possibility they sign Roslovic. There's the possibility they sign Kuznetsov. I'm not sure that either of those players changed the narrative for me around the Vancouver Canucks. It does add center depth. That's definitely important. But all that would do basically then is push Ratu out of the lineup. And if you have, say, Kuznetsov there as your third-line center, I don't know that puts the Canucks closer to the playoffs. I mean, Bluger's not going to drop out of the lineup, so it'd be Ratu that would drop out of the lineup there. Now, their goaltenders, Lankinen, 25, 15, and 10, 902 save percentage. Had a very strong start, especially on the road, and so we'll see if that carries over to this season. Demko went 10, 8, and 3 with an 889 save percentage, but the analytics, the advanced stats were good on Demko. Shilovs went 2, 6, and 1 with an 861 save percentage. Of course, he's off to Pittsburgh. And Tolopilo came up, played a couple of games, went 1 and 1, 885 save percentage for him. Now, looking at the last 5 playoffs, not a lot to report here. No playoffs in 2021, 2022, 2023, or 2025. The 1 year they make it in 2024, they win the division. They go to the second round. They lost in 7 games against Edmonton, and then everything fell apart with all the drama this team was embroiled in this season. Looking at their power play, they were 15th at 22.5% this past season. They were third in penalty kill at 82.6%. So it's remarkable how well they played on the special teams. 5-on-5 let them down. Goals for, they were 23rd at 2.84 goals per game. Just not enough offense there. Goals against, 18th at 3.06 goals against per game. You would think with Rick Tocchet out that maybe we'd see a little more offense, but we're not sure with Adam Foote if that's going to be the case or if we'll just see maybe some stingier defense being played. Maybe they start going to a 1-3-1 system or 2-2-1 or whatever trapping style system they decide to go with. But the Vancouver Canucks are going to need a lot of the ifs to turn into positives rather than a lot of the ifs I've talked about throughout this video ending up in the negative. And so we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.